Hey everybody, I am back with Listen, chapter 16, The Pine Grove. I always hear some strange noises. There we go. Sarita comes in from her drive up to the mailboxes and hands Charlie a letter from Amy. Charlie can feel Sarita's eyes on her back as she starts for the kitchen to throw it away. She can imagine the look on Sarita's face, the same look she gets when Charlie refuses an invitation to hang out with the kids from school. Sarita probably thinks, like Charlie's father does, that she shouldn't be alone so much, that she should be going out with friends, having them over to the house. But Charlie doesn't want to leave Coyote, not yet. And she certainly doesn't want a bunch of kids coming around and scaring him into the woods. Besides, there's something else. Something almost magical happening this summer that she can't explain, even to herself. It isn't something she wants to share. Still aware of Sarita's watching, Charlie doesn't drop Amy's letter in the trash this time. She goes to her room instead, sticks the letter unopened in the frame of her mirror, and flops onto her bed. It is July 18th. The red number on the calendar today is 39. The summer is more than half gone. 1 month from today, school starts again. Amy will come home from up north and Charlie will have to go back to school. What will happen then? She doesn't want to think about it. Doesn't want to think about Amy. Amy's probably only writing because she feels guilty. She ought to feel guilty. Going away, and Charlie stops in the middle of the thought. It is just a habit, she realizes, grumping about Amy and Becky Sue, Lake George and tennis. She is surprised to find that she isn't angry anymore. Whatever Amy is doing this summer, there is no wild dog in it. Whatever Amy is doing, Charlie is having a better summer. She grins and gets up. She will take some biscuits outside for the dogs. The next morning, Coyote leads Charlie back up the sewer line access trail. Maybe, she thinks, he's hoping that she will be willing to do the whole power line hike again and stay out all morning. It's Saturday, Sarita's day off, so she could. Today, her father won't wait till she gets back to go to the office. That's a good jump, April. He's decided she can take care of herself for a few hours. But it's only 8 in the morning and already the sun is beating down on the trail so hard that she really wants to get off it and into the shade. Under the power lines there is no shade at all. She looks to see where Coyote has gone. Well, he's disappeared. Her choice is to turn back and take the lake trail, hoping he'll figure out where she's gone and come and find her, or cut into the woods where there isn't a trail. Her leg isn't hurting too badly, and she feels up for an adventure, so she decides to cut into the woods. On her left, the ground slopes down towards Heron Pond and gets marshy. Once she pushes her way through the screen of honeysuckle and poison ivy and blackberries to get in under the trees, the walking will be bad. On her right, the ground slopes up. The sun has encouraged pretty much the same tangle of undergrowth among the pine and sweet gum saplings on both sides. So whichever she chooses, the going won't be easy at first. But at least to the right, there won't be mud. She keeps walking, looking for a break in the undergrowth until she sees, through a stand of tall pine saplings, what looks like a clearing of reddish sand. There seems to be nothing growing there, and she wonders if it could really be sand here where all the soil is heavy Carolina clay. She remembers then a winter photo her mother took of a place where sand and water have frozen into a forest of tiny stalagmites. This must be that place. The blackberry brambles had petered out along the edges of the trail, leaving only honeysuckle and a wild rose, its wickedly barbed branches spraying out like a fountain. Amazing, Charlie thinks. How many things in nature have thorns? Skirting the rose bush, she heads in toward the clearing, pushing pine boughs out of the way, ducking under or stepping over vines. Whatever made this clearing, it is floored with coarse, sandy soil, lighter than the color of the clay. It slopes up to a wooded hill, covered with moss and pine needles. In the middle of the clearing, there is a small pile of black dung, studded with seeds. Scat. Her mother called these leavings of the woods animals. It is one way to track the animals. Charlie has no idea what left it, raccoon or possum, or maybe a fox. She crosses the clearing and climbs the hill, holding onto the trunks of young pines and cedars to pull herself up. When she gets to the top, she recognizes it immediately. She's found the pine grove. Pines and cedar grow so tall and so dense here that the shade is too deep for undergrowth. The lower branches of the trees have died and mostly broken away, leaving clear space for standing. She can look in any direction and see what seem to be corridors of tree trunks, some straight, some curving, down the slopes. The place where she is standing now, a rounded knoll, is almost perfect circle, like a green-roofed room with a mossy floor where fairy rings grow. There is no sign of mushrooms now. It is dim and still here, almost cool. Unlike the ground everywhere else in the woods, there are no leaves. A scattering of sharp-edged white stones peek out from the carpet of pine needles, moss, and lichens that cover the ground. It feels as if she has stepped from the bright, hot summer of Eagle Lake into a different season, a different world. She finds herself breathing more deeply, taking in the sharp scent of pine, sap, and cedar. If she could feel her heartbeat, she thinks, it would be slowing down. This is a place she does not want to leave. She lowers herself to the ground and leans against the trunk of a pine, her left leg tucked up under her, her right stretched out in front. The stillness settles around her. Gradually, she becomes aware of insects buzzing, the twittering of birds, and there's something else, something that isn't quite a sound. It's more like a vibration, as if the pine grove and the woods beyond are breathing in time with her breath. What you hear depends on how you listen. The thought appears in her mind and hovers there like a hummingbird at the feeders her mother used to put out. What you hear depends on how you listen. She sits as still as she can, aware of the birds, the insects, the breathing of the woods. Her eyes focus on the feathery branches of a cedar on the other side of the knoll, then on the thick plaited bark of a pine. There is a quick glimmer of silver light. She shifts her focus and sees a fine line of gossamer trailing across the clearing. One of the lines of web a spider stick catches, she thinks. The kind she can't see. Maybe she has not been looking the right way. She doesn't know how long she stays, drifting in the stillness, before the shrill voice of a blue jay in the top of a nearby tree jolts her back to herself. Where's Coyote? She whistles once, then again. Will he find her in here? In this place that they've never come to before? Or will he expect her to be on the trail somewhere heading home? She doesn't want to move yet. She doesn't want to leave this place. She will wait for a while and see if he will come. Where is he? She wonders again. What's he doing? She closes her eyes and an image forms of him sniffing around the base of a tree stump, scenting something burrowed underneath. He digs with his front paws, throwing clots of red clay out behind him. When he can't get the animal he is after, he sets off trotting through the woods, ducking under bushes and jumping over fallen trees. Then she imagines him stopping, ears and nose twitching. He has caught the scent of a deer. There are plenty of deer in the woods, Charlie knows, though they aren't very often seen in the daytime. Sometimes, at dusk, they come out from under the power lines or into the field near Eagle Lake's stone gates. From time to time, she has noticed hoof prints in the mud by the ponds. Now she sees a pair of deer, a doe, and a young buck, leaping up from where they have been sheltering in a hollow beneath a fallen tree. They leap away and Coyote takes off after them, becoming a golden blur, running and jumping and swerving among the trees. They splash through a creek and up the bank on the other side, Coyote behind them. Then they angle to the left, and Coyote cuts across a small clearing, closing the distance between them. He leaps at the one that is lagging slightly behind, and it kicks its hoof, catching Coyote on the bridge of his nose. Coyote yelps and stops as the deer go on, bounding over a fallen pine tree and disappearing into the brush. Panting hard, Coyote watches it go. There's a sharp, curved line of blood across his nose where the deer's hoof connected. Charlie shakes her head and opens her eyes. Wherever Coyote is, it's time to start back. Her legs are stiff and she can feel where the bark of the pine tree she's been leaning against has left a pattern on her back. She pushes herself to her feet, stretches her arms over her head, circles her shoulders a couple times, and heads down the hill into the sandy clearing, holding to the trees to slow her progress. She will be coming back to the pine grove, she thinks. It is a perfect place to rest while Coyote does whatever he does in the woods. The sun is hotter than ever out on the trail, and she is eager to get home and change out of her jeans. From time to time, as she walks, she whistles for Coyote. The blackberries are almost gone now, but she snatches a late one and pops it into her mouth. It is dry and hot and not good. She has just passed the cutoff to the lake trail when Coyote comes down out of the woods on the other side. "Well, it's about time," she says. "You're a mess." His legs are muddy, his fur is studded with clumps of red clay. Charlie catches her breath. There's something else. A sharp, curved line of blood across his nose. Ooh. That is the end of the chapter.